Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Toast, and we actually just got a confirmation that a lot of you have been waiting for. You know, it's kind of crazy to think about, but this has been years in the making when Microsoft first announced their intent to acquire Activision Blizzard. Now, we can make a case that they've been dragging their feet since that buyout completed, but they finally gave us an update today that plays into a rumor that we've been hearing for the last several weeks. So we're getting all of that today, and then also, did Valve finally learn to count to 3? Have they been watching themselves some Sesame Street? Because there's been a new finding that has the internet going absolutely crazy over the long-rumored and long-requested Half-Life 3. Yep, the rumors are indeed back. Now the main question just kind of becomes, is there actually any truth to this? And that's something that we're going to dive into today. If this is your first time on the channel, though, do make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like this type of content. I'm here every weekday, and we really just like to talk about gaming. We do have a few showcases incoming with Gamescom this month, and then TGS in September. So if you want to be a part of all of that, do hit those buttons below. But let's just go and get right into things, starting off with one of my most anticipated 2024 games, being Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I've always had a soft spot for these top-down Zelda games, and I just like the idea of Echoes of Wisdom. It's just different enough to be fresh, but also still a familiar experience. And that's something that they really showcased in a new overview video, where they gave us our best look at some of its new mechanics. And I have to say, even though its most obvious comparison is Link to the Past, it honestly reminds me more of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It almost kind of seems like they're trying to bring that experience to a top-down Zelda game where it's more about how creative you can be to solve its various puzzles. That's one of the things that's always really stood out about Breath of the Wild. There's not one single confined way to solve an individual puzzle, and it seems like that's what they're trying to go for with Echoes of Wisdom. Zelda's new abilities opens the door for all kinds of creative, out-of-the-box thinking. Previously, they showcased her Echo ability where she can summon different objects. There's a lot of creative things that she can do with that, but in the new trailer that they just showed, they revealed that she has a bind ability as well. She can connect herself to different objects, and this allows her to move throughout the world in unique ways. And it's not just for traditional puzzles, but also for how you approach combat. Unlike Link, Zelda doesn't have a sword, so you're going to have to think outside of the box a little bit more. And there's even stealth elements when it comes to this game. So, I mean, if they execute all of this well, and, that's kind of the question here, but if they can do this, then Echoes of Wisdom has a crazy amount of potential for clever puzzles and boss fights for that matter. And truthfully, I think that's where the top-down Zelda games excel anyways. Because of their more limited combat options, a lot of the gameplay shines more in terms of puzzles, and that's where Echoes of Wisdom has a lot of potential. So again, if they can pull this off, this could actually end up being a brilliant shakeup for the top-down Zelda games. The other thing about this trailer, though, is that it almost indicates that it's going to be a much bigger game than what a lot of us might have expected. For a lot of these top-down Zelda games, they don't necessarily have a big world. But in Echoes of Wisdom, not only will it have waypoints that allows you to fast travel, but you can also ride by horse. And the thing about that is, why would you need things like that unless its world is significantly bigger than past entries? In fact, some fans are already freaking out about the brief look that they gave us for its map. Fans are trying to match it up with the blurred out part of the map, and if that holds up to be true, it does look significantly bigger than other top-down Zelda games like it. I mean, we still need to wait for further confirmation, but if anything else, after this trailer, I can honestly say that I'm even more excited to play this game than what I already was. I just really like how creative it is, and we'll kind of see if it works out when it releases next month on September 26th. Now, speaking of next month, we also have TGS, where RGG is expected to reveal the next Yakuza game. They previously teased that its reveal will be there, and what's really kind of intriguing about this announcement is that they also noted whatever this game is, it will surprise fans. Now that leads me to believe that this is probably going to be some kind of spin-off like Judgment, and that it's likely going to be for a completely different genre than what we've seen from them in the past. They've already done beat-em-up games and turn-based RPGs, but we might see them experiment with something completely different again, and I think their latest trademark kind of backs that up. It was recently discovered that Sega filed a trademark for Yakuza Wars. Now, this really could be for anything. It's hard to predict what this could be for, but the first thing that I thought about was maybe a tactical RPG. I think that could make sense for this series just because you could basically control the different gangs and orchestrate how they battle on the battlefield. I think that could maybe work out, but something else that I've seen a lot of people mention is a possible crossover with Sakura Wars. That's another Sega IP, so, I guess it's possible, but at the same time, I just don't really know how that would necessarily work out. Whatever the case may be, though, we're probably not going to have to wait all that long for its full reveal. Again, they are expected to be at TGS next month in September. Okay, so let's go and talk about Xbox here for a moment, because they finally did the thing that we've all been waiting for. Activision Blizzard games are finally coming to Xbox Game Pass on a regular basis. This here is the reward the fans were promised in the ABK buyout, and I think the wait has honestly gone on long enough. Microsoft has had plenty of time by this point. But something interesting has happened here recently. We heard a rumor last month that they were preparing to drip feed Activision Blizzard content into Game Pass, starting with Call of Duty Modern Warfare in the month of July, which in fact did end up happening. And then the Crash Insane Trilogy was supposedly set for an August release. Well, I'm happy to say that has also turned out to be 100% true. They just confirmed that it will be a part of the first wave of Game Pass games for the month of August, which includes the Crash Insane Trilogy, Mafia Definitive Edition, and then last but not least, Creatures of Ava. Now, that's a day one release, which we'll talk about more here in a moment. But I think the big news here that a lot of people have been waiting for is that this does confirm that rumor that we had previously heard. So that's a great indication that Xbox absolutely is planning to drip feed ABK content into Xbox Game Pass as was claimed. So now I'm just kind of assuming that from this point forward, we will see at least one ABK game for Game Pass every single month. Maybe sometimes more, depending if they want to fill up a slow period. But hypothetically, let's just kind of say they could release Spyro Reignited in the month of September. Then the Tony Hawk remakes in October, followed by Black Ops 6 in November. And then the list just kind of goes on and on and on. They still have countless Call of Duty games that they could stagger over time. There's still Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. They have Sekiro, which was published by Activision. And they have games like Prototype, and the list just kind of goes on and on. They could even bring over more games through backwards compatibility. Now, I've talked about this before, though, but I do understand that there are differing opinions on this supposed drip feed. Some people want them to just kind of unload everything all at once. And okay, I can kind of understand that to a degree, but I'm in a firm belief that this does very little for anybody. Not one person here has the time to play all of their games all at once. And what happens if they do something like that is that then a bunch of games will get overshadowed rather than getting their own opportunity to shine. Let's just go and take Call of Duty as one such example. If Call of Duty 4 were to release next month by itself, well, then what would happen is that a bunch of people will flood that game. However, if they were to release multiple Call of Duty games all at the same time, well, then that user base would kind of fraction. So I just don't think that's good for individual games. I'd much rather a single game get its own spotlight. And with that, I'll tell you this right now. If you haven't already played the Crash Insane Trilogy, they are absolutely amazing. In my honest opinion, they are among some of the most unique, some of the most challenging, and some of the best 3D platformers ever made. So again, if you haven't already played these games, go check them out when they release in the Game Pass on August 8th. Now, as for Creatures of Ava, like I said, this is a day one release set for August 7th, and, well, reviews have been rolling out today. Now, it doesn't have a lot of reviews just yet, but it currently has a 79 overall score on OpenCritic. It's kind of described as a monster capturing game similar to Pokemon, or at least to a degree. That every monster capturing game gets compared to Pokemon. But instead of battling, you kind of use them to solve various puzzles in its adventure-like world. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, definitely go check it out tomorrow when it releases into Xbox Game Pass. Of course, there's also Mafia Definitive Edition, which is slated for August 13th. And then for you Game Pass Ultimate subscribers, keep in mind that you do have the perk to unlock all agents in Valorant. So, I mean, not a bad start at all for Game Pass in the month of August. All right, so let's go and talk about something a little bit more educational, because Valve might have learned. I know we all know that sometimes it's hard to count to 3. And Valve, they know that most of all. They have a lot of great games, but nothing with that number 3. Most notably being for the long rumored Half-Life 3. We have heard about this game since 2007, as crazy as that's to believe. Now, we did get Half-Life Alyx a few years back, and that breathed some fresh new life into this beloved series, but will we ever actually get a definitive Half-Life 3? And according to a new rumor, there's hope. That's more than what we've had for quite some time. But here's what's happening. There's a voice actress that owns her own website where she includes all of her previous work. And if you look at her work, this includes a lot of different games like Starfield, Fallout 76, Valorant, Apex Legends. Apparently she's been a part of some pretty major projects. But then interestingly, she included an unannounced game that goes by the name of Project White Sand. Even more interesting here is that allegedly, according to her, this is an unannounced Valve game. Now, as you would expect, this website has since been flooded and is no longer accessible. But the rumors have been going absolutely wild about what this game could possibly be. And the belief right now is that it is something related to Half-Life. Now, okay, a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, this is just people just making up things by this point, but there is actually a reason for all this, because it was discovered that White Sand is a park in New Mexico State, and even more interesting is that Half-Life's Black Mesa is located in the same state. And that's when this rumor really just kind of exploded online. Now, admittedly, there's a lot of hopium with this rumor, as there is with honestly every single Half-Life rumor by this point. You know, we've gone through this so many times since 2007, so I wouldn't necessarily look at this as anything definitive, just because we've been burnt by rumor after rumor after rumor after rumor after rumor after rumor. You kind of see where I'm going with this. But here's my take. Half-Life Alyx released in 2020. So, you know, this is no longer a dead franchise like a lot of people claim. In fact, it got a modern release, and as far as I'm aware, it did very well, despite it being a VR-only title. So we've already seen recent interest for Half-Life within Valve, and that game may have sparked something inside of Valve. That might have set up another entry, and, you know, it has been 4 years since that game released. Maybe Valve has been working on something these past few years. I mean, I just don't think that this is quite as impossible as a lot of people might think that it is. But I will say this. If, and I know that this is a big if, but if Valve does announce a new Half-Life game, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they name it anything besides Half-Life 3. I think Valve will play into the joke that they can't count to 3, and they'll just kind of call it something else entirely. Either way, though, go ahead and mark this one down as a rumor for the time being, and just take it with a grain of salt like you would with really any other Half-Life rumor. Let me know what you all think, though. Do you think that Valve is actually working on a new Half-Life game, or do you think people are just, once again, going way overboard with the latest rumor? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, subscribe, and peace out.